Have you ever heard someone say, donkeys are just hard-headed? Maybe you've even said it yourself. It's probably one of the oldest and most common sayings about donkeys. After working with wild and domestic donkeys over the years, I've found that calling a donkey hard-headed doesn't actually tell us very much. It tells us that something isn't going the way we expected, but it doesn't tell us why. I've watched donkeys stop because they were nervous. I've watched them stop because they didn't understand the question. I've watched them stop because I asked too much too soon. I've watched them stop because they simply needed another moment to think. And sometimes they stop because they don't yet see the purpose. They don't understand why this new thing is worth doing. From the outside, every one of those situations can look exactly the same. But from the donkey's point of view, they're completely different. So instead of asking, is my donkey hard-headed? I'd like to ask a different question. What is my donkey trying to tell me? Let's take a closer look. When someone tells me their donkey is hard-headed, I don't immediately assume they're right. Instead, I wonder if they're misunderstanding how a donkey thinks. One of the biggest differences I've found between horses and donkeys is that donkeys are thinkers. They don't simply react. They process, they observe, they make decisions. And every decision they make makes sense to them. That doesn't mean they're always making the best decision. It means they're making the choice they believe will bring them the most comfort in that moment. Comfort doesn't always mean physical comfort. Sometimes comfort comes from understanding. Sometimes it comes from feeling safe. Sometimes it comes from confidence. Sometimes it comes from choosing the answer they believe is most likely to work. When I started looking at donkeys this way, it completely changed how I trained them. Instead of asking, how do I make my donkey do this? I started asking, why does my donkey believe this is the right answer? Because if I can understand why the donkey made that choice, then I can help them find a better one. We're not teaching donkeys how to think. They already know how to think. We're teaching them how to find the right answer. And one of the biggest ways we do that is through our timing. Every release teaches something. If I release when a donkey kicks, I may accidentally teach that kicking is the answer. If I release when the donkey searches for the right answer, I teach them that thinking is what brings comfort. That is why I want my donkeys to think. If I didn't value a donkey's mind, I'd ride a four-wheeler. I work with donkeys because I love the way they think. And when a donkey understands the question, feels safe, and believes it can succeed, it will give you its whole heart. Now that we understand how donkeys make decisions, let's look beyond the behavior. When most people see a donkey refuse, kick, freeze, or even become aggressive, it's easy to focus on what the donkey is doing. Instead, I want you to start asking why. One of the biggest lessons I learned came from a donkey we called Broken Ear. The first time I worked with him, he looked like he was getting ready to bite me. Later on, he was attacking a flag, and yet later on, attacking a rake. At first glance, it would have been easy to label him as aggressive or dangerous. But then I learned he was blind in one eye. Suddenly, his behavior made perfect sense. He wasn't trying to be difficult. He was trying to protect himself the best way he knew how. Once I understood that, I changed my approach. Instead of trying to convince him he was wrong, I helped him understand that he was safe. We worked on smaller steps, giving him time to think, and before long, he was investigating that same rake with curiosity instead of fear. I've seen the same thing with donkeys that kick during training. Many times people think the kicking is the problem. I usually see something different. Often the donkey is telling us that we've asked too much, moved too quickly, or missed the moment when they first became uncomfortable. If we wait to release until after they kick, we may accidentally teach them that kicking is what brings comfort. Instead, I try to notice the very first sign that they're becoming unsure. That is my opportunity to slow down, make the questions smaller, and help them find a better answer. The same thing happens when teaching a donkey to pick up its feet. Rather than asking for the whole foot right away, I first make sure they're comfortable with every little step that comes before it. Touching the shoulder, sliding my hand down the leg, holding the leg for just a moment. Every one of those small steps build confidence. When we break a lesson into small enough pieces, we're able to find the exact moment where the donkey says, "I am not sure about this." That is not failure. That's information. And once we understand what the behavior is telling us, we can change the lesson instead of blaming the donkey. One of the greatest lessons donkeys have ever taught me isn't really about donkeys. It's about learning to see the world from someone else's point of view. When I stop asking, "Why won't my donkey do this?" and start asking, "Why does this make sense to my donkey?" everything changes. I become more patient. I listen more. I stop trying to force an answer and start helping them find one. Ironically, that's exactly when they become more willing. The more I work with donkeys, the more I realize these same lessons apply everywhere else in life. With our spouses, our children, our friends, the people we work with, even the stranger we meet at the grocery store. Every one of us is trying to make the best decision we can with the understanding, experiences, and comfort we have in that moment. That doesn't always mean we're right, but it does mean there's usually a reason behind the behavior. Donkeys have reminded me that taking the time to understand another point of view often changes the outcome far more than applying more pressure ever could. And maybe that's one of the reasons I love them so much. Because when a donkey feels safe, when they understand the question, and when they believe they can succeed, they'll give you their whole heart. And I think that's something worth earning. If you would like to continue learning with me, I offer hands-on clinics, gentling camps where you work directly with a wild donkey, one-on-one coaching, and YouTube memberships with exclusive training videos and the rationale why I make the decisions I make training donkeys. If this video helped you see donkeys a little differently, I'd love to have you join us. Be sure to subscribe. And for more videos that may help you understand what your donkey is trying to tell you, check out my Understanding Donkey Behavior playlist. Maybe donkeys aren't as hard-headed as we've been told. Maybe they just deserve to be understood. And when they are, they'll give you their whole heart.